Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and we are continuing Middara. Just got done going through wherever the hell we are, because we went into...
we were looking for the... so we were following Justice's lead to find, I guess, the crew she was hanging with.
Yep, and essentially fell into a trap.
Yeah, like there was some
like this old library,
wooded, like a dryad-like creature or something talked to us, and I assume is behind all the traps.
I would as well, and I guess we'll find out. So, Rook the Rescuer.
The Rescuer. Rook was on an island in the Sea of Battle. All around him was carnage. Some monsters were fried in blasts of magic, while others were cut to pieces. Rook watched vigilantly, his only concern being Remy's safety. Remy watched the battle through half-open eyes as cold sweat rolled down her face. Rook was worried she was going into shock. He didn't know what it was like to have wings, but he knew they had lots of delicate bones, and the pain must be intense. "Sorry for slowing you down," she croaked. "Don't be," he said gently. "Everything is under control. Soon we'll get out of here, and we'll be able to take a look at those injuries." "Kinda makes me miss those bellicose cubes," Remy muttered. "The wounds are never as bad." "Yeah," Rook smiled. A few minutes later, and the last of the monsters had either fled or been killed, and the corridor was safe.
Zeke's over there. Like, yep.
They're dead, Zeke. It's just the electricity making their bodies shiver.
This is the only way I can hit something.
Again, as safe as it could be anyways. "Let's keep moving," Zeke said. "Maybe having their asses kicked will keep anything else from bothering us for a bit."
Alright, then we go to deeper into... Okay, so we were in the library. I'm like, where did I get that? Deeper into the library.
Deep.
I'm deep. Give me... Oh, man, why do you do that? Why do you do that, Foreteller? Why are you ass?
Deeper into the library. "This is less than ideal." Rook stared at the massive stone wall, running his hand over its surface. They had searched several different corridors, but each of them either ended in a dead end or led back to the room they stood in now. The wall was covered in intricate, indecipherable markings carved deep into the stone. "It blows, you mean," Zeke corrected, pulling a freshly rolled cigarette from his pocket. "There must be another way around," Damocles said, confident. "This may seem like a maze to us, but it used to be a city. These buildings were intended to be used. We will just have to backtrack further and search again." "Is it all right if I set you down?" Rook asked, looking down at Remy. She nodded, and he lowered her to the ground before slumping down beside her. "I think I've seen symbols like this before." Justice was the only one still looking at the wall. "This looks like Arcalan's script, I think," she said, running her slender fingers across the rough stone symbols. "Denizens from Arcala built this city," Rook said. "Suri, can you read it?" Suri materialized and spun through the air in her ghostly form. "It's ancient text from my realm. I'm afraid that I do not know how to read it." Rook looked back towards the tome that Justice held. "Didn't your people write that book? The Book of Theodosian?" Suri frowned. "My people is a very broad description of the variety of individuals from the realm of Arcala, though I suppose you meant my species. If that is the case, we are called the Atagatis Siren. These books were not created from my people." Justice nodded her head in agreement. "I think those from Arcala were just the first to harness Theodosian. Zephyr had been meeting with one of them. I think her name was Bexley. I gathered she was not like Suri here, though. I'd been told she was something called a Nixie." Suri scowled. "The Nixie are vile creatures from my realm." Justice gave her a look, but continued without addressing her comment. "Yeah, well, when Bexley would write things down for him, she used this language. Hold on." She took a deep breath, holding the book out so she could look at the book and the door at the same time. "I wonder if..." "Ha! Justice smiled back as the book's pages flew open and a faint glow came from within. She formed strange musical words, each one a song unto itself. With each new sound, a symbol lit up until the whole wall was growing faintly green. Stone ground on stone, and the wall split down the middle, each half swinging open. There was a small room beyond, maybe 10 square feet, with another wall of symbols on its far side. Other than that, it was almost empty. Almost. The first thing Rook noticed was the sickly smell of rot and decay. A single body lay on the floor, fallen on its side in a pool of putrescence. Maggots and other little insects crawled on the corpse, and a pair of large swords lay next to it, their blades badly damaged. Zeke approached and gingerly rolled the body over with one foot. It was wearing a robe of some kind and had a pack, which Zeke cut free with a few slashes from the dagger, holding it at arm's length. "Hey, check this stuff out! This guy had some sweet gear," Zeke said, holding up the bag. Justice had gone pale. She walked over to the corpse, ignoring the smell and rot. "Jacob," she whispered. "Damn, what kind of creature could have killed you?" She turned away. "We're in trouble. Jacob was one of Zephyr's best warriors."
Zeke's totally insensitive. Just, you gotta get this body. Why you check this out? Jacob, my best friend.
Like, oh shit.
Man, I'm not getting any anymore, am I?
"Anything that could kill him." Rook glanced to Remy, who seemed content to remain sitting against the wall. He then proceeded to investigate the body. "I don't think he died in battle." Rook lifted one of the massive cleavers, holding the blade out for Justice. "Look at this. See the chips? The little pieces of rock? I think maybe he got stuck in here. Maybe he tried to break out. Maybe he couldn't read the words and suffocated," Justice supplied. "Or ran out of water or food or... Damn." She slumped to the ground in front of the corpse, whimpering. "If I was here, I could have gotten him out." "It isn't your fault," Zeke said, putting a gentle hand on her shoulder.
So tense.
"You can't help him now, but you can help us. Nightingale is still alone on the surface. We have to get back to her.
Smell like
Once
blood.
we're back together, we can look for the rest of the Anointed, okay?" "Yeah," Justice squeaked, taking a few more deep breaths before struggling to her feet. "Yeah, okay." She looked solemnly at the body one last time. "Sorry I couldn't help you, Jacob." She walked past his body to the opposite wall. "Let's get out of here." A few more chants and a second set of doors swung open. The passage beyond seemed to slope gently downward without any sign of a branching path. "Guess we're going down again," Justice said. "Hopefully there aren't any more bodies waiting for us."
Inside of Jacob's pack, you find a stash of items. We gained 4 random mundane consumables.
Nice.
And the 4 I drew were Magic Balm, Bottle Blessing, Vitality Juice Box, and more throwing knives.
Nice.
So, let's see. We
Go
can
somewhere.
give 2 to him, because that's what he can carry, and then...
She's got 2 more slots in her pack.
There you go. There you are! Magic Bomb and... Yeah, so we got 10 consumables for free. Nice. Neat. And then we move on to Nightingale Alone.
Oh, she got separated?
Yeah, remember, so I think there was something, like, hidden up at the top, and Zeke was like, oh, I bet I can totally grab that. And whenever he did, he, like, latched it, and then the trap door opened, and everyone fell. That's how Remy got hurt.
Oh, and
Nightingale didn't fall with us.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she's not with. That's why she's unselectable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, solo adventure.
Nightingale Alone.
Nightingale Alone. The voice of the Malama grated against her skull, and the familiar, sickening feeling began to overwhelm her. Bracing herself, she took a deep breath in anticipation of jumping down into the darkness. "No," the Malama screamed, 1,000 voices echoing through her skull. "Stupid girl, the fall would kill you." Nightingale let out a bitter laugh. If I die here, you'll be stranded, won't you? She growled. No more bodies to hijack. Don't you get that I don't care about what happens to me? I care about what happens to my friends. If they survive the fall, they'll be fine. They are more competent than you. Stay put,
Hurtful.
else you might get yourself lost. At least one of your friends might make it back here. The Malama seemed genuinely concerned that she was going to jump down the pit, and its fear made her happy. Nightingale thought better of it, though. The fall could kill her. For all she knew, her friends were already dead at the bottom of the hole.
Okay.
She shivered at the thought of their corpses piled on themselves. This would be so much easier if we had cell phones, Nightingale sighed grudgingly.
True.
She fell silent, and the Malama seemed
Yo, what's up?
content to do so as well.
Yeah, we're fine.
She dropped back down by the fire, keeping her weapon close by. A long moment passed as Nightingale stared into the dimming fire in front of her. The soft crackling began to lull her to sleep, when all of a sudden, a deep rumble at her feet jerked her back to her senses. Something was moving beneath her, far below. She jumped up, looking around frantically. She hoped her friends hadn't disturbed anything dangerous. Then again, it would have meant they were still alive. The tremors grew steadily until the shelves around her started shaking. One tumbled over, spilling decrepit books across the floor and splintering apart. Nightingale readied her weapon and steeled herself for what might come out of the dark. A humanoid figure approached from the gloom. Nightingale thought that maybe it was the forest nymph she had spoken to earlier, but as it came closer, it became clear that this was someone else. She looked similar, but her skin was deep green and her hair was thick like vines. Her red eyes sparkled like blood. She hardly seemed to notice Nightingale at first, striding into the library with the air of one who was sure of their superiority. Someone triggered my trap, the nymph sung, her voice a discordant music in the dead library. Her eyes suddenly fixed on Nightingale and froze. Her expression grew into cold amusement. Apparently, it didn't get all of you. What did you do to my friends? Nightingale shouted, brandishing her weapon. The nymph smiled at her. They're dead, the stranger said, her voice still singing. No need to worry. Soon you will die too. Like hell I will, Nightingale advanced, her body tense in a fighting stance. Tell me what you did with them. Where did the trap lead? Tell me now, and maybe I won't force you to tell me. The stranger laughed softly as she snapped her fingers. A moment later, the rumbling resumed. More shelves tumbled, and a huge creature burst from the ground behind the nymph. Nightingale almost dropped her weapon as she stood frozen in shock. It was a massive, writhing coil of muscles sheathed beneath oily, pitch-black skin that strained to contain it. At the top of the abomination, it split into a dozen heads, each opening to reveal rows of barbed, razor-sharp teeth. Despite its enormous bulk, the creature was fast and surprisingly dexterous. It picked up the nymph in one of its maws and placed her safely on top of one of its heads. To her horror, Nightingale realized that this giant worm-like creature was the nymph's mount. Like an obscene horse, she straddled the top of one of its giant heads and commanded it. The creature and its rider rose up, casting a menacing shadow over Nightingale. There was no telling how big this monster really was. Each of its many tentacles might be a head, or maybe none of them were. Nightingale wanted to turn and run for her life, but she couldn't. Not only was this monster probably faster than she was, but it had stolen her friends. Who knew what it planned to do with them? Yes, stand and fight. Fight for your friends, Nightingale. They need you. Don't fail them. The Malama whispered into her mind, urging her forward. Oh, now you want me to fight? Nightingale hissed at the Malama, and it chuckled in her mind. You're braver than anyone in the last group. I'll give you that, the nymph called down from atop the worm, grinning. It won't help you, though. The worm surged forward. Nightingale retreated a step, her weapon ready. Two of the creature's massive tentacle heads came at her, ready to impale her on its multitude of teeth. She sliced her weapon down past the first one as it came, dodging out of the way, then caught the second one against her free arm, squaring her legs against the ground. It wasn't enough. The force of the strike was so great that Nightingale was thrown back through the air. She covered her head in her arms as she crashed through an old bookshelf. She passed right through the rotten wood, rolling painfully along the floor before she came to a stop near a wall. The nymph cackled as her vile mount twisted and writhed. "This will be such fun!" Her voice was shrill and crazy sounding. Nightingale struggled to her feet, spitting blood and grinning. "Gotcha!" she squeaked, one arm against her cut mouth. One of the worm's smaller heads slid from its stump, soupy green ichor spraying from its neck. The other head shrieked in agony and thrashed about, scattering books and debris. The nymph's face lit up with anger. "Cassithus!" she screamed with worry in her voice. Her worm seemed pained, albeit only a little. "You'll die for that, girl!" the nymph bellowed at her. The monster lowered its many mouths toward Nightingale, all opening wide. They could have eaten Nightingale and all of her friends and still had mouths to spare. A familiar grating voice whispered in her head. "Die for me now, Nightingale. Give me the body of someone stronger. Someone who truly deserves my power." The Malama was clawing at her, trying to push through her mind. Nightingale could feel it overwhelming her, clouding her vision. She tried to force the Malama back down deep within her psyche. She gripped her weapon tight, fighting against the monster in her mind. She wouldn't lose focus. She wouldn't die here. Suddenly the ground gave way beneath her as something massive forced its way to the surface. At first she thought the giant worm had burst from the ground beneath her, but it was something different. Nightingale caught a glimpse of some green leaves and strong brown bark before she was thrown head over heels towards a shattered second-story window. She landed roughly, and it took her a moment to comprehend what had happened to her. Standing next to her was the nymph she had encountered earlier. Nightingale looked back out the broken window, wondering at the massive cluster of vines that stood where she had been. It appeared as if this nymph had used some kind of spell to lift her to safety, away from the worm down below. "What's the matter, Alana?" the other nymph yelled over Nightingale's head. "Go on! Make your own vines to come and fight us! Or can't you do that anymore?" Alana roared in frustration from atop her atrocious mount. The worm echoed her scream, and the whole ruin seemed to shake with their tremulous rage. "You can't take my prey from me!" Alana screeched. "I'll never forgive you for what you've done!" Nightingale's rescuer shouted back at Alana, her voice cracking with rage and grief. "You've taken so many! You can't have this one! I'll kill you too, Breeze! Enjoy your freedom while you can!" Alana spit back. "I have other intruders to worry about anyway." She turned away with a terrible rumble. Alana's mount burrowed into the floor, taking her with it. Only a slimy hole and a pile of rubble were left behind. Nightingale dropped to her knees, aching all over. "Thanks," she panted, breathing heavily. "I thought that was going to be the end of me." She laughed nervously, shaking off the adrenaline pumping through her. Nightingale turned a little, looking up at the stranger. She clearly wasn't human. The green of living plants wrapped around her hands and ankles and mixed freely with her hair. Her eyes were a deep brown, without whites at all, and she smelled pleasantly of fresh flowers. Even her clothes seemed to be alive. "My name is Breeze," the nymph said, offering a hand to Nightingale. "I tried to warn you before, but I couldn't." Nightingale waved, cutting her off. "It was my fault. I was on edge. I shouldn't have scared you away. Do you know what happened to my friends?" The nymph nodded sadly. "Trapped below with all of Alana's other victims." "What is she?" "I thought she was a forest nymph, like you. But what is that creature with her? I've never seen anything like it." Breeze took a long time to answer. "Alana used to be a forest nymph, but she was entranced by the allure of an unnatural life. Our kind don't enjoy the same longevity that you humans do, and some of us sell ourselves in a twisted symbiotic relationship with a worm like the one you saw there." Bree shuddered for a moment before her voice turned hard. "She's not a nymph anymore. They're one creature now. She and the worm. We call them lich worms. She makes sure it's fed, and she gets to never age in exchange. She's already took all of my tribe. Then she started luring in adventurers. Just a few days ago, she captured a whole group. It's unusual for so many humans to come here. She wants to eat my friends." Nightingale gripped her weapon tighter. "You have to show me where she keeps them. I need to get them out." The others. That was probably Zephyr and the rest of the Anointed. I need their help. We can't let them die. Breeze looked her over, falling silent for a long minute. Eventually, she turned back to the library. If I show you, you have to help me rescue any survivors of my tribe she still has trapped down there. She couldn't have eaten them all. Not yet. And we stand a better chance if we work together. All right. Nightingale didn't even hesitate. Let's do it. Really? Breeze seemed surprised at how quickly she was willing to endanger herself. All right, I can show you the way.
I hate myself.
I'm very suicidal. All right. Trapped in the dark. Oh, God. Oh, look at those fucking tingers.
Oh, dog.
I guess that's the other one. Breeze.
I assume.
There's the art for anyone looking. There, just zoom in right on that right there.
Tootsies.
Yeah. I want to see the other girl. Nope, that's the merchant that we came across. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, so there's Alana and
Her
Breeze.
Lichworm.
All right. Okay, trapped in the dark. Yeah. I don't know why you don't auto-load, you shitty app.
Trapped in the dark. Rook had lost track of how long they'd been walking, but they hadn't detected any sign of monsters in at least an hour. He finally came to a stop in a room thick with dust, indicating the underground's inhabitants didn't use it all that often. A perfect place to take shelter. We can make camp here for now, he said in a tone that would brook no argument. We're all exhausted, and I need to see to Remy's injuries. Justice and I are going to check the stairs, Zeke called over his shoulder. We won't wander too far.
No one come with us, though.
Not,
Just me and
Damocles
Justice.
answered gruffly. If we have to go looking for you, we might never escape. Zeke nodded, and the two of them vanished up the steps. Rook set Remy down against a wall and laid his first aid kit next to them. She looked exhausted. Hey there, he said, sitting down across from her and opening the bundle. I'm going to take a look at those injuries, if you don't mind. About time, she tried to force a smile. Although I was getting used to being carried everywhere. Gage emerged from somewhere in her bag, hopping down onto the ground and nudging at her with his head. It's all right, Remy muttered. Rook's gonna take care of it for me, aren't you, Rook? Yeah, he answered, slipping out a tiny glass bottle filled with milky yellow liquid. Drink this. I need to set your wing. This will help with the pain.
Oh.
Remy took the bottle and downed its contents. While Rook waited for the painkiller to take effect, he quickly cleaned and examined her ankle.
Quaaludes.
The ankle was sprained, but not
What?
broken.
Quaaludes.
It's Quaaludes.
That was good.
The Bill Cosby
He could
stuff.
just worry about the wing. Gage followed him, watching with concern, but not interfering. Zeke and Justice returned from the stairs, looking excited. Justice grinned as she hurriedly explained. Hey, everyone! I think we found the way out. There was another sealed door up there, but I got it open. I think it might lead out of here. It doesn't smell like a corpse, at least, Zeke shrugged.
Look at their
Excellent,
friend.
Damocles said. Let's get out of here. Rook didn't budge. Remy will need rest when I'm finished, he grumbled. She's been dragged around long enough. Justice nodded. Okay, well, at least we have a direction for when we move on. There was little conversation. Everyone was exhausted, or they didn't seem to want to interrupt Rook's work. Remy was barely conscious by then, a side effect of the painkillers. She would barely feel the pain of having her wings set and splinted. It was the best they could do. Without magical healing, it might take months until she'd be able to fly again, if ever. But Rook had nothing else to offer. Once they'd gotten back to civilization, they'd be able to find someone better suited to healing something so bad. Damocles was nearby and apparently watching him. You're very dedicated. Rook could only shrug. I was chosen to be Nightingale's personal knight. I'd be embarrassed if I couldn't completely deal with injuries. Damocles nodded, looking away from him. You're Esper. She's from Arcala, isn't she? Was she the same race that built this place? Rook turned to answer, but Suri spoke first. Rook got the sense that she was paying far more attention to his exploits than she normally did. She was appearing now at a moment's notice without him calling her. I am. Do you require something? Suri appeared fully opaque now, even as the amulet glowed bright. I will provide it if I can. Many of the doors we've encountered down here needed Theodosian to open. Why would that be? Damocles asked. Suri seemed amused as she looked him over. How much do you know about Theodosian? Damocles glanced over to Justice, who shuffled uncomfortably in her seat, squeezing her book a little tighter across her chest. I know the denizens of Arcala got it first. Justice sounded nervous. I know the Theodosian books choose their mage, not the other way around. I know that at one time the magic might have been as common as assemblage or crewer, but now it's all but disappeared. Does all that sound right? Rook didn't expect much of an answer out of Suri. She'd always been evasive when he asked about what her life was like, or her people. Yet she didn't vanish or look away, or say anything coy this time. That is correct. However, the Atagatis siren, the Nixie, all manners of creatures from Arcala did not create the Theodosian books for themselves. They were given to us by... Well, Middarans are fond of calling them dragons. Most of my kind see them as divine creatures, and their gift of this powerful magic was our reward for faithful service. Theodosian became so integrated into our daily life at one point during our history that it used to serve as a test of competency. Sealing our doors with it would ensure that valuable secrets could not be accessed by those who did not have the understanding to use them wisely. Justice nodded. What about the Pontifex? The Grim Deacons want it, but we don't know why. Do you know anything about what it does? Suri seemed uneasy, but...
Pontifex, that's the item that Eiling had, right?
No, that was the hegemonics.
Oh, okay. Pontifex.
Not sure.
Yeah, that's that one I'm drawing a blank on. Was the Pontifex down when you fight that... I can't remember her name, but she was like the purple girl.
The Echo Knight or whatever. The Grim Deacon, that's what she was.
Okay. The one where Eiling tried to burn the place down while you were underneath it?
Oh no, she was a Living Oblation. That was Melody.
Melody, okay. Yeah, the Pontifex, I can't remember.
Still, she didn't disappear. The word Pontifex is a human one. We call them Alcadema. I have never seen one in person. The technique used to create them is lost now, even to us. I only know they would be immensely valuable to many of Alcala's natives. These Grim Deacons might simply be seeking material gain. Justice laughed. I wish. That would be so much easier. She started digging around in her book, flipping to what looked like an index before turning to the back. Just how many pages are there in that thing? Rook asked. Justice shrugged, biting one of her fingers in concentration as she pored over the book. Never the same amount. Twice. She...
How many pages are in that book? There's no way of knowing what it just... Oh man, that was good.
Uttered. Suri seemed amused by her sudden study. Justice's expression of concentration soon changed to one of satisfaction, and she pointed dramatically. Ha! My book didn't say anything about the Pontifex. Alcadema, though? It says that information is in the restricted archives. Right here. She turned the book around, pointing. I could take us there right now. The book had drawn some kind of map upon its pages. The ink wobbled and moved as if it might spill off the pages at any moment. Remy can't be moved right now, Rook said, rising and gesturing to her. She needs to rest if her wing is going to heal. Didn't you fix her? Damocles asked. I cleaned out the wounds and splinted them, but that's not the same thing, Rook said. She needs a magical healer. Barring that, she at least needs some sleep. Not to mention, we're pretty sure we know the way out now, too. Nightingale is still waiting for us up on the surface. We should get back together with her before we go any deeper. Saphir could be down there, Justice insisted, pointing at her map. If Nightingale doesn't talk to him, it Doesn't matter if we get back together or not. The Malama will kill her regardless. By then, Zeke was on his feet again, looking more awake. Look, you're both right, he said. I think I have a plan.
Plan. Hey, do we have the Storyflag experienced guy?
No, we don't.
All right, then we'll go to safe resting.
Safe resting. Zeke continued. We can't drag Remy around being hurt as she is, but we can't just ignore this opportunity. Nightingale's on a short timer here. I think maybe we should split up, Zeke said, flicking a half-smoked cigarette into the darkness. Damocles, Justice, and I can go down into wherever. He pointed at the inky picture on the Book of Theodosian. Rook, you stay up here with Remy and wait for us. I'm sure it won't take long, but if it does, you can go get Nightingale in the morning, then go back and search for us. We'll chalk the walls or something. Real by-the-book Dungeons and Dragons stuff. It's not like you could get lost with Surrey to guide you anyway. That actually sounds like the best plan, Damocles sighed. I don't like splitting up, but we are running out of time. Remember, our enemies are moving against us. Echo and her allies won't be sitting in a cave doing nothing while we
Echo
search
was her
out their
name.
secrets.
That's why I was calling her Echo.
All right, Rook sighed. Just, if it looks too dangerous, come back. We can wait if it means having our full strength. Right, Zeke said. We will. I'll make sure. They gathered up their things and waved before disappearing down the steps. Rook laid his back against the wall where nothing could sneak up on him. All right, Remy. Sleep well. Beside him, Gage approached, nuzzling Rook's free hand before taking up a post beside him. Right. Forgot about you. Guess there's two of us.
Just the two of us. Alright, going to the archives. Go into the archives. Guess I'll go all the way back. So
I know it resets every single time.
Yeah, so yours doesn't take you back to like the selection?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does? See,
Yeah.
mine like is blank and then I have to go all the way out and then
Oh,
go back in.
Weird.
For some
Well, it sends me back to the selection all the way to the top. So then I have to scroll back down to
yeah.
find it.
Yeah. So the two options we had, like, because they both took us to the archives, and I'm like, oh, so what's the difference here? The difference is if we had the experience guide, it would mention Patrick and stuff. It's like, oh, okay.
The archives. Justice ran through the halls, fueled by her curiosity. She barely felt the fatigue of the day's struggles, renewed by her intense need to know more. At the bottom of the stairs, they'd found another sealed door. On this floor, there was far less of the rot and decay that she had come to expect from the upper levels. The intricate bas-reliefs on the walls were as crisp as the day they'd been carved, and the colorful paint had lost none of its intensity to time. Wait for us, she heard Zeke call, running down the hallway behind her. Damocles wasn't far behind him, the bobbing light of someone's glowstone the only clue to their exact position. There was something ahead, a dark space like a gigantic open mouth towering over and around her. Of course, her tome had already given her the directions she needed. She hurried over to the wall, where a small metal plate engraved with more symbols was set. Look at how this place looks, Justice pointed out, studying the symbols. If it's this pristine, I bet any books down here will be in great condition. She pressed her hand to the steel and read them in a tremulous voice, forcing herself to slow so that she wouldn't bungle any of the pronunciation. The Nixie words felt awkward on her tongue, and she felt the strange magic burning as she spoke. A thread of power connected her and the strange book that had changed everything and taken her ordinary life away. As Justice knew they would, her words brought the ancient spell to life, and the whole of the archives were suddenly illuminated with a swell of green. It came in a line, arching straight up along a groove in the wall, all the way to the ceiling where the glowing green split into an intricate, overlapping geometric pattern. The shelves, the furniture, the decorations were all made of crystal, with creams of quartz mixed with rare minerals in a stunning way. The shelves were overflowing with books of all kinds, and each section glowed with helpful runes to direct a prospective reader. The archives might have been beautiful, were it not for the bodies. As the darkness around Justice abated, she saw to her horror that she was almost completely surrounded. The ground floor had a massive hole in the marble like a gigantic burrow. Partially digested carcasses were scattered around it. Damocles called for Justice a moment later. "Damn it, don't get separated like that," Damocles shouted. "I thought you were the only other intelligent person in the group." "Welcome to the archives," a voice called from up above. Justice looked up and found a humanoid figure leaning casually on the top level, arms folded as she watched with obvious amusement. For a moment, Justice thought it was Lakshmi, but the closer Justice looked, the more obvious the differences became. This one had porcelain skin instead of Lakshmi's darker mahogany, and her eyes looked devoid of any emotion. Her outfit was adorned in keys, like she wore the countless keys instead of keeping them in a bag. A pair of larger ones even floated on either side of the girl, humming with magical energy. Then something with knives peeked around the girl's ankles. A small doll smiled wickedly at her. Out of the darkness, a few more appeared at different angles around the room, and Justice remembered Lakshmi telling them about the others of her kind. The gatekeepers weren't always friendly. "Please try not to get any blood on the books," the strange voice said. "They're quite rare."
Moving on to Independent Bravery. Alright. Hot. I'm down the clown.
Independent Bravery. Breeze's path took her and Nightingale through a tight corridor littered with bones, many with scraps of flesh still clinging to them. Nightingale swallowed back the bile in her throat as she plugged her nose. Some of the bodies were obviously animals, but many more were not. How many people had Alana murdered? She thought with disgust. Countless. The Maluma's voice sounded unnaturally thin, as if it was trying to speak to her from as far away as possible. This path is not advisable. Nightingale's expression grew angry. Getting killed by a trap isn't in your grand plan, Nightingale hissed under her breath. With no body to jump to, you'd be stuck here. What? Breeze glanced at Nightingale. Oh, nothing, Nightingale said quickly. Breeze must have thought she was a bit crazy, or perhaps she hadn't met a lot of humans. In either case, Nightingale just hoped her new nymph friend wasn't too weirded out about her occasional arguments with the Maluma. Before Breeze could question it anymore, Nightingale decided to bring up something else. This place just doesn't look good. I mean, I know Alana is the real threat, but this doesn't exactly look like the safest route. Safest? Breeze asked, her face paling as they continued on. Her expression was one of resolve, but the further underground they got, the weaker she looked. Nothing is safe here, but we are less likely to die going this way. Well, that's comforting, Nightingale muttered. If Alana acts as she has before, she will go and gather the prey she has captured, Breeze continued. While she does that, she will leave her lair unprotected. We'll move in behind her and rescue anyone she's keeping. Then we'll have numbers when we find your friends. We're going to her lair? Nightingale shivered. I guess that explains the bodies. Yes, Breeze looked away. Many were part of my tribe. She killed so many. Nightingale fell silent as they passed through an open doorway into a large, dark space. She held up a glowstone, trying to get a better view. Even then, she could only barely make out the ceiling. It was a huge dome, the lower tiers of which were lined with numerous shelves of rotting books. There was more refuse on the ground as well, and a huge opening clearly used by Alana's worm. There was a single human figure waiting in one corner of the room, and Nightingale felt relief flow into her when her light fell on it. It wasn't Alana, but Lakshmi. Lakshmi! Nightingale called, waving energetically.
Yeah,
it's good to see.
I was like, who the hell is that? I think Lakshmi is that four-armed person that we met at the very beginning.
Oh, the trader?
Yeah, her. I'm pretty sure that's who that is.
Lakshmi, the traveling merchant.
Yep, okay. So, because I was like, yeah, who the hell is that? Then I saw this, I'm like, they have multiple arms, and they keep referencing her.
The creature turned. It was a gatekeeper, but it definitely wasn't Lakshmi. This gatekeeper seemed made of a bright metal. Breeze retreated in fear, slashing at the ground in front of her with one hand. A barrier of sturdy wood appeared there, breaking through the cement as though it were accelerating through decades of natural growth. Nightingale backed away, putting up her arms. "Hey, we don't mean any harm. There's no need to fight." In answer, the creature screamed, if it could be called a scream. It was more like the protests of a dying engine. The scream died down as the gatekeeper dropped a pair of strange dolls. It looked like they were made in the image of their master, with small knives to scale. The dolls jerked into motion, advancing on Nightingale.
There's a so Resident Evil 8 had a DLC, and there's a moment in the DLC where you go to I think it's the Beneviento house, but they have mannequins, and whenever you're walking away and you turn around, the mannequins follow you, but they stop when you look at them. I'm like, yep, that shit's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
But that will take us to the Gatekeepers of Gehenna, which is an encounter. Oh. That's cool. But
Next time.
yep, that will be next time on
Dragon
Middara.
Ball.
So stick around for the rest of the series. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Thanks for coming.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.